Dear fellow INFJ.
INFJs often feel so different, not just in how they interact, but in how they think, how they process life, and how their brain seems wired on another frequency. Today, we'll dive into 10 reasons the INFJ brain works differently, backed by psychology, neuroscience, and research into personality and sensitivity. If you're an INFJ yourself, you'll probably find yourself nodding at many of these points. And if you love or know an INFJ, this might help you understand their world a little better. 1. Dominant introverted intuition, NI, the pattern seeker brain. The first reason the INFJ brain works differently is because of its dominant cognitive function. Introverted intuition, often called NI. Unlike most people who process the world through immediate details, INFJs are wired to scan for patterns, connections, and future possibilities. Psychologist Carl Jung, who first described intuition in 1921, explained that intuitive types perceive what is possible rather than what is obvious. Modern neuroscience supports this. A study by Jung Beeman, 2005, at Northwestern University showed that intuitive insights are linked to increased activity in the right hemisphere, particularly the anterior superior temporal gyrus, the brain's pattern recognition center. This suggests INFJ's constant aha moments are not magic, but a reflection of how their brain literally organizes information differently. In other words, INFJs have a unique way of connecting dots and seeing the big picture, which sets them apart from more detail-oriented thinkers. 2. A unique balance of logic and empathy. INFJs are often called the counselors or the advocates of personality psychology. Why? Because their brains blend logical structure with deep empathy. A 2013 study by Desity and Jackson highlighted how people high in empathy engage the anterior insula and anterior cingulate cortex more strongly. Meanwhile, INFJs, with their auxiliary function extroverted feeling, phi, are constantly tuned into others' emotions. But here's where it gets weird. INFJs often rationalize emotions. INFJs often rationalize emotions. They don't just feel for others or worrying, they analyze and find meaning in those feelings, making their brain function almost like a bridge between raw empathy and logical insight. This dual wiring makes INFJs both emotional and analytical, something rare among personality types. It's like their brain takes in all the sensory data, including other people's feelings, and then processes it with logical structure, finding insights and meanings that might not be obvious to others. 3. The mirror neuron effect. INFJ empathy on overdrive INFJs are often described as empaths, but science gives us an explanation. Mirror neurons, discovered by Rizzolatti et al. In 1996, are brain cells that fire both when we act and when we see someone else act. They're linked to empathy. Highly sensitive people, many of whom are INFJs, show stronger mirror neuron responses, Acevedo et al., 2014. This means that when an INFJ sees someone cry, their brain partially experiences the same sadness. When they see someone happy, their body mirrors that joy. This is why INFJs sometimes feel emotionally exhausted in crowds. Their brains are literally simulating the emotions of dozens of people at once. Their natural empathy, combined with the mirror neuron effect, makes crowds a sensory onslaught for INFJs. It's like trying to listen to every conversation at a party at once. 4. Depth of processing. Why INFJs overthink. Ever been told you think too much? For INFJs, it's not optional. Their brains are wired for depth of processing. Psychologist Elaine Aron, who pioneered the study of highly sensitive people, HSPs, found in her 1997 research that HSPs show stronger activation in brain areas linked to deeper cognitive processing, like the prefrontal cortex. This explains why INFJs replay conversations, analyze motives, and imagine endless outcomes. It's not that they want to overthink. Their brain literally holds on to and processes information longer than most. For INFJs, deep processing is just how their brains naturally operate. It's like their minds can't help but probe beneath the surface of every interaction, searching for deeper meaning. 5. Strong connection between intuition and memory. Another reason the INFJ brain feels different is the way intuition connects to memory. Research on déjà vu by O'Connor and Moulin, 2010, showed that déjà vu may occur when the brain misfires between familiarity and memory recognition. For INFJs who rely heavily on intuition, déjà vu moments are common and often emotional. They don't just think, "I've seen this before." They feel it deeply, as if their memory, intuition, and emotions are woven together. This creates a kind of psychic-like perception that others sometimes find uncanny. The strong link between their dominant intuition and memory makes for an incredibly rich inner life, but it also makes it harder to turn off at times. 6. A brain wired for meaning, not just facts. INFJs rarely care about random trivia or surface-level information. Their brains crave meaning. According to Viktor Frankl's work in Man's Search for Meaning, 1946, humans need purpose, but INFJs elevate this. They structure their thoughts around existential meaning almost constantly. This is why an INFJ might spend hours reflecting on the why behind a conversation, a life event, or even global issues. Their brain isn't satisfied with the what happened. It needs to know why it matters. This intense focus on finding meaning is a powerful strength of INFJs, but it can also lead them down mental rabbit holes when what they really need is a break from analysis. 7. Emotional memory storage. Why INFJs never forget feelings. Most people remember events in terms of what happened. INFJs, however, remember how it felt. Neuroscientist Joseph Ledoux, 1996, showed that the amygdala, the brain's emotional center, plays a role in encoding emotional memories. For INFJs, with their phi function and high sensitivity, this emotional encoding is especially strong. So while they may forgive, they rarely forget the emotional impact of an event. This wiring makes INFJs loyal, cautious, and sometimes guarded, because their emotional memories remain vivid for years. If you've ever felt surprised by an INFJ's cautiousness, it's likely a reflection of their emotional memory and their reluctance to repeat past mistakes. 8. Introversion and energy management. The INFJ brain is introverted, which means it uses energy differently. Research by Marty Olson-Laney in The Introvert Advantage, 2002, suggests that introverts' brains rely more on acetylcholine pathways, which are associated with long reflective thinking, rather than dopamine bursts that extroverts chase through external stimulation. This explains why INFJs may appear quiet in social gatherings but come alive in deep, one-on-one conversations. Their brains are not wired for constant external engagement. They're wired for deep, internal exploration. INFJs might feel bored or drained after a long day of socializing, but energized by a rich conversation with a friend. This difference in energy management affects how they approach relationships, social settings, and even work environments. 9. Creativity rooted in complexity. So, INFJs often excel in creative fields, writing, art, music, not because they want attention, but because their brains demand complex self-expression. A study by Kaufman and Gregoire, 2015, on creativity and sensitivity found that highly sensitive individuals often turn to creative outlets as a way to process their intense inner worlds. INFJs, with their unique Nai-Fei pairing, create art that is not only imaginative but also emotionally resonant. Their brains don't separate logic and emotion, and they merge them into symbolic, layered creativity. This is why the works of INFJs can be so captivating. They're not just conveying a message or emotion, but they're also weaving a rich tapestry of thought and feeling. 10. Future-oriented thinking, living 2 steps ahead. Finally, the INFJ brain is almost always future-oriented. Their Nai function constantly predicts outcomes, while their phi scans for how those outcomes will affect others. Research on future-oriented cognition by Schachter et al., 2007, shows that imagining the future activates many of the same brain regions as remembering the past, including the hippocampus. For INFJs, these areas are in overdrive. This is why INFJs are sometimes accused of living in the future. Their brains are wired to constantly anticipate, imagine, and prepare. which makes them uncanny at predicting outcomes but also prone to anxiety. It can be hard to live in the moment when your brain is constantly exploring potential scenarios and mapping their emotional impact. So why is the INFJ brain wired so differently? It's a mix of intuition, empathy, depth, and meaning-seeking, all backed by psychology and neuroscience. INFJs aren't just quirky or weird. Their brains are highly tuned instruments designed to see patterns, feel deeply, and connect dots most people don't even notice. If you're an INFJ, remember this. Your mind may be rare, sometimes misunderstood, but it is profoundly powerful. And the world needs brains like yours to uncover meaning in the chaos.